There's one thing that does concern me, Madam Deputy Speaker. Much as I welcome the devolution to Scotland, much as I envy the devolution that the Scottish people have achieved because of the hard work of people like Donald Dewar and the convention, the Scottish Citizens Convention, even the 2012 Scotland Act, and now this Act. There are those of us who represent constituencies in England who would kill for 1% of the effective devolution that has gone to Scotland, and I congratulate the Scottish people for their efforts and where they've got to. But I hope we'll be coming very soon to how England can learn some of the lessons of Scottish devolution, because it has taught many of us many lessons. And I will perhaps touch on some of the devolution packages that are now appearing in England, and they do look very puny and weak compared to the proper devolution that has now taken root, quite rightly, in Scotland. But my anxiety, one that I'd like to mention, Madam Deputy Speaker, is about centralisation. It's not devolution if the powers merely go to the next stage. If they go from Whitehall to Holyrood and stay there, some would argue perhaps not used as sufficiently as perhaps they could be, and do not then filter down to lower tiers, perhaps local government in Scotland, but above all to the Scottish people themselves in their communities and their neighbourhoods. Exchanging centralisation from Whitehall and Westminster to Holyrood is not the bargain that many of us thought that we had in terms of devolution in Scotland. And I'll very gladly give way to the honourable member.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for giving way. If he was paying attention to events in Scotland, he'll recognise that the Scottish Government has brought forward proposals for further devolution to our island communities. And when the Scottish Government came to power, one of the first things we did was remove the vast amount of ring fencing that constrained local authorities. It is the previous Labour administration that was guilty of centralisation, not the Scottish Government that we have today.
Well, it's always good to hear of examples of further devolution, and I say more power to those who want to what is called double devolve. And the more that happens, the more that those of us in the other nations of the Union can learn the examples and see that happen. And I think that's a really important lesson for all of us who believe in devolution, that we need to push these things further. And therefore, in which case, why is it the case that my good friends in the Scottish National Party haven't supported further amendments and proposed further amendments on making sure that local government itself in Scotland, in this case, can go further and can run much more of its own affairs? Why is it that I give way to the honourable gentleman?
I thank the right honourable member for giving way, and as always he's making a very coherent argument on issues that he has great expertise in on constitutional matters. But would he not agree with me that this is often a two-stage process? The first stage being to devolve powers to the Scottish Parliament, and then for the Scottish Parliament to then further devolve powers with the powers that it has been given to Ireland and other communities, as it has already done so.
I think it's important that we see it in stages. I mentioned a little earlier that the devolution proposals for England have made a start, but there may be another couple of bills necessary, even in this Parliament, before we really see what devolution in England looks like. But there has to be a point where the powers that have already been devolved can be used and can be pushed beyond the Scottish Parliament.